Hello everyone, welcome to the CHRO Club. CHRO Club is a quest to reach out to selective who's and who from HR industry to create an intellectual asset of first-class storytelling. In this club, we host distinguished HR leaders and we capture their moment of greatness and bring forth their professional journeys, their learnings, their guidance to the ones who've started the HR journeys or the ones who are approaching the goals. Today with me, I have Rajeshwar Tripathi, who is a CHRO of Mahindra and Mahindra Automotive and Farm sector. Hi Rajeshwar, so nice to meet you. How are you?
Hi Pooja, thank you, I'm fine.
You know, I want to begin this conversation with the most critical asset of an organization today, which is talent. Today, talent is at the center of an organization's growth strategy. It is a differentiator for the bottom line. It is the most critical KRA for an HR professional. And we see there is a huge amount of change that is taking place in a talent landscape today. Critical talent is hard to get. So in these circumstances, do you see a shift in the lens for talent hiring and attraction?
Yeah, so Pooja, I'm sure this is a very big question, in the minds of everybody, because we've been talking about war for talent for quite some time. I think it's in the last 2 years what we have seen playing out is nothing short of spectacular. Right? All of us have read about it, and we used to debate. You remember this used to be a pet theme in the conferences and seminars. But when we have seen it playing, sometimes it gets scary.
Right.
We have, many people are calling it year of great attrition, the last 2 years. So, a lot has happened, okay. But not everything has been negative. Okay. So, let me divide this entire subject into, say, 4 verticals, right, or 4 key trends. So, first and foremost, I think what we have seen in the talent landscape is fungibility. Earlier, you remember, intuitively we would say that if I was to go and hire for tractor industry or farm equipment sector, we would go to the tractor companies.
Right.
I was to hire for auto, most intuitive thing to do is to go to an automotive company.
Not anymore.
What has significantly changed now is this fungibility of talent. So, we are no more going only to auto and tractors, right?
Correct.
We are going to all across and who's who in
Right.
the industry space, including the software, and all the biggies, the IT giants, etc. We are also hiring from them. In fact, just to give you statistics, hardly about 30 to 40% of our entire hiring is happening from within the industry.
Okay.
So, that's the amount of shift which has happened in the recent times. The second very major thing is this requirement of skill sets. That is undergoing a big shift. Okay. Some jobs and roles are going away. Some new jobs and roles are getting added, and what it is resulting in is a very big shift in the requirement of skill sets.
Right.
Technology is getting disrupted, business models are getting disrupted, and as a result our requirement is also getting changed.
Correct.
Now, the easiest thing is to replace, but human beings can't be replaced at such cycles, right? Then each one of us will be out of job.
Right.
And what it has done therefore is the focus on 2 things. One is reskilling and upskilling, and the second is also our emphasis on quick learning, fast learning.
Correct.
The learning agility as we
Yeah.
call. So, that is the second thing which we are seeing a very major shift in the talent space. The third one, and I'll now go a little faster on the other 2. We have this entire thing about leveraging talent through diverse hiring, right?
Right.
The diversity. There is a huge untapped potential out there and increasingly we are focusing on both the diversity part of it and also the untapped talent in terms of say freelancers.
Correct. Gig
You know,
workers.
the gig workers, you know,
Yeah.
people who are not able to come full time to the workplace, and especially with this remote working and the virtual working, it has made it lot more feasible.
Correct.
So that's the third space, big time change which I am seeing happening even in industries like ours, which are considered to be brick and mortar industry, right?
Right.
And the last one I would say is basically built around you know, it's something different from fungibility, but it may belong to the same category where there's an open job market concept,
Right. Yeah.
So within the organization also we used to have lot of compartments,
Yes.
departments, functions. So in one stroke, for example, through our internal job market policy, we have opened it up.
Exactly.
So now we are seeing people moving from manufacturing to sourcing, from sourcing to XYZ, even it's a huge amount of talent mobility which has started taking place.
Yeah. Very nicely explained, Rajeshwar. And as technologies, accelerated technologies such as AI, ML, cloud computing has bombarded the workplace, HR as a function has transformed. You know, today for experience, you have technologies that help you customize, personalize experience. Amidst all this, keeping talent at the center, how are you rewriting employee experience at your organization?
I think employee experience as a subject or even as a definition, as a concept, it has evolved, and it keeps evolving as we you know, progress in this world, right?
Right.
What was a very great employee experience 3 years back is a
It's
hygiene.
not anymore.
Is hygiene.
Yeah.
It may still have a meaning, but it's still a hygiene.
Yeah,
now.
it's reached this point of saturation,
Yeah,
and
correct.
you have to think innovative. Yeah.
So this has been an area where it has seen a huge evolution. Okay, and when we had in M&M, I remember way back in 2013 we had gone for HR transformation, and we went for a tripod structure. Wherein there is a shared services, there is a COE, and there is a business partnering. And what was uppermost in our mind was that in future, you know, we need to create a structure which is able to provide a very high-end employee experience. And when I say employee experience, in totality. Now let me take this example, this tripod structure, and how we went about our approaching employee experience. So on one hand, people would expect, for example, that all the processes, each and every transaction that I am going through as an employee is super efficient, highly effective, and very, very productive, right? So that's the efficiency part of it. That's also important. People may call it hygiene, but if it doesn't happen, then it creates a big dissatisfaction.
Right.
So we had to set that piece right. So we went into shared services, huge amount of automation, digitization, and so we did all that what is required. So for example, the lead time in say joining, onboarding, you know, all that was reduced. We made it a very, very good experience altogether, right? So that's the first piece of the employee experience part. The second piece of employee experience, which has more evolved in the recent times, am I enjoying the work?
Right.
Right? Is this workplace enjoyable? Right? Am I enjoying the culture of this organization? Right? Now that's the subtle piece of employee experience.
Correct.
And there I think every organization will have its own way, have its own model. But what we have done is we have tried to identify what all are those touch points, okay, which employee goes through. You gave an example of, I think, career conversation.
Correct.
Right? Career
Yeah.
conversation. Now
cross-function mobility.
the cross-function mobility, you know,
Yeah.
or the opportunities that I can get in this organization to learn and grow.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
These are very important
Yeah.
aspects of employee experience. So one by one, what we did was we started looking at it from employee lens, employee perspective. Traditionally, we have always looked at, you know, what the organization can offer. There was a phase in which we had a huge premium on employee value proposition, right? But
Right.
you flip it other way around and start looking at it from employees' lens, and then you start finding these answers. So we had we identified all these touch points, and we have process by process we have tried to see it from employees' point of view, and we did two things. One is brutally simplify the process.
Right.
It doesn't look like a very elaborate or very tiring one, you know. And second is also in addition to simplifying those, also whether it is really delivering the end objective,
Right.
what it was supposed to.
Correct.
So if there is a career conversation, what it is supposed to, and whether I am really delivering that. Same will go to for reward and recognition, same would go for say performance management system.
Right.
So our core HR processes, we have really tried to look at it from what experience is it providing to people, and in some words, you know, what is the residual feeling I am getting out of it, right? It's very
Right.
subtle.
Right, right. And you know, very rightly said that the processes need to be not very cumbersome, because when they're cumbersome, I think the cycle becomes longer. So the simpler a process it will be more agile, you can modify, you can adapt, and today is all about adaptation. And you know, this is a good opportunity for us to segue and talk about culture. Today, culture and value is the new currency of an organization. You know, your organizational culture goes a long way in setting processes, in setting an employee-centric organization. So what is, and as a custodian of the culture in Mahindra, I'd like to understand what is the philosophy behind your culture?
Yeah, so again a great question, Pooja, and I think this is one subject where people find it hardest either to benchmark or to replicate, and we believe this is something which is very unique, right, to every organization.
Right.
So you enter any organization, any workplace, and you will find some very unique identity, and we believe our identity is our culture.
Right.
And therefore there is a huge emphasis on culture. Culture also in our belief is a derivative of what are our ethos, what are our value systems, right? How do we want to run this organization, right? How do we want to operate this business? It starts from there, right? Of course, profit is the motive for running the business, but on the how part of it, right? What are the do's and don'ts? What are my ethics and governance boundaries, right? How am I setting those parameters? So that's one aspect of building the culture, which is
Right.
largely coming from our ethos, values, etc. But there is another very important bucket of culture which actually drives the shaping of culture, which is our purpose. Right?
Correct.
So in M&M, for example, we have every business having its own purpose, and that purpose is a very live purpose, right? Something which is very here and now, which people can relate to. So every individual in this organization can relate to that purpose. Yes, this is the reason why I come to this workplace. You know?
Right.
This is something which drives me day in and day out.
Right.
Makes me come to the workplace daily, right? And most important, I can relate to my work to that purpose.
Exactly.
And I think in today's generation and in today's context, this is becoming
Very
extremely important.
Yeah.
And knowing this fully well, you must be aware we had launched RISE
Mahindra Rise.
Mahindra Rise.
Yeah, I saw some boards also of Mahindra Rise in the office.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we have, after 8 to 10 years down the line, when we had first launched, now we have launched a Rise Refresh.
Okay.
And basically what we are saying is that this is going to be our architecture for driving and shaping culture. This is what we want to be. This is what we are, that this is what defines us, and
Correct.
This is what we want to be. It is almost our guidance for the future. So we have 3 pillars in the Rise Refresh.
So from Mahindra Rise to Rise Refresh, can you elaborate on the pillars of your new program?
Yeah. So we call it brand pillars, and as I mentioned to you, it starts with a purpose statement. So we have redefined our purpose statement, and we have redefined the brand pillars.
Right.
Now the 3 brand pillars. The first one is we call it Rise to create more equal world. In that elements like inclusion and all those things will come in. So we have identified 3 elements.
Salary parity.
Yeah. So and fairness, etc. So all that will come in the and we have been very focused. We have not let it loose. So there are 3 very specific elements in that.
Okay.
So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is Rise to be future ready.
Right.
So how are we going to prepare the organization for the future? So for example, one of the elements under this is technology. Right. So that keeps us focused.
Right.
And it also becomes kind of a guidance for us. Right. So that's the second brand pillar. And the third one is a very important one, and this is a real addition in the Rise Refresh 2.0, which is Rise to create value. So how does the business prosper?
Right.
Right? How do we create value? Is it through impact? Is it through scale? All those things. So that really has put this entire approach to culture building in its totality.
Very interesting. And I just like to kind of align purpose and culture. For example, when you say that how can you bring value to business, like for the young generation Z who would like to come to your workplace now and get an opportunity to work in, environment friendly methods of production and the technology and automation that you use in your vehicles. And if they are net zero, they'll be able to align their purpose with your organizational purpose. And this also brings me to the, most important aspect of business today, which is ESG. As an HR professional, how are you impacting the ESG charters in your organization?
So Pooja, this is all of us are aware that the kind of importance which ESG is now having in the overall landscape. It's a different thing that the world is talking far more about it. But if you look back and the way we have practiced our ethos in Mahindra and Mahindra, we had taken 10 major commitments, right? And these commitments are to ourselves. It's in the areas of carbon neutrality. We had set a target for renewable energy way back, 6 or 7 years back.
Oh, wow.
And we started working towards that. So we have taken some very audacious targets. Today, in a manufacturing organization like ours, we are already at in excess of 30% on renewable energy, right? And we have set very aggressive target for ourselves. Being an automotive company, obviously, carbon neutrality is a big thing.
Big thing. It's a challenge.
Yeah. We have 21 manufacturing locations, and we have set a target for being water positive.
Wow.
Right. And we have already attained it, but to sustain it and to do it further better as we scale up in the business and as we ramp up our production, it is going to be a challenge, but we have taken that audacious target, like zero waste to landfill.
Right.
Right. In many of our plants, we have already achieved it, and we are further driving it. So these are areas. We have programs running around women empowerment, for example.
Right.
impacting 1 million women, right? Big targets we have taken. That's for social cause. What is happening now today in a much more structured format, we are very well aware of it. What we are doing is we are doing disclosures. The disclosures are far better. There is a need to have more data.
Right.
There is need to have lot more awareness amongst people, and those are the areas where now we are going very aggressive and preparing ourselves for the new standards and bars of ESG that is being required of the corporates.
Yeah, very interesting. And with this thought, I'd also like to ask you that, when you're talking about culture and when you're talking about ESG, how do you see a difference between, conglomerates like the ones we have in India, which are kind of, created by family groups, and multinational companies and the new startup companies that are getting created every other day and, turning into big unicorns today? How do you see a difference in culture in all these organizations?
Yeah, so Pooja, I don't believe that we can generalize based on, say, a promoter driven or a multinational. I think those boundaries are now going away.
Right.
The only two categories which I believe exist are well governed and not so well governed. We as a country have a long way to go. If you look at the standards of disclosure, the way things are moving, I think it's going to demand lot more from us.
Right.
And it's a moving target, right? What was very good 2 years back is no more good today, right? Because the targets have moved. The expectations are much higher.
Right.
And also, very importantly, I think it's very contextual as well.
Right.
For example, the focus on climate change.
Right.
That also has a context, and I think the importance of it. We have a project, we have an initiative called Project Haryali, right, where we have a target of planting 1 million trees every year, right? So, but now going forward, the kind of importance it has, we may have to scale up our target.
Of course, yeah.
Secondly, we may have to do lot more than only planting trees. Right?
Yeah.
So water positive, for example, is one. Zero to landfill.
Yes.
So these are the things which we are adding, looking at the context and also how situation evolves.
Today, you are playing a key role in business. So what would your advice be to the human resource professionals who have started their journey or who are in the mid part of their journey? And what would be your advice to them that how they should plan their professional journeys and maybe aim to become CEOs or other C-suite leaders in their organization?
Yeah, so that's like putting in a spot, because see, it's very difficult to give advice because advice is very prescriptive, and I don't think any prescription in this world has ever applied universally, right?
True.
What may be very good for me may not be as good for you. So it's highly, but some things remain the same, and I'll try to share, my viewpoint, okay, on how I think we need to approach in this fast evolving world. And let me start off with the most fundamental thing,
Right.
which is the fundamentals don't change. So it's always good to concentrate on what is my fundamental, right? So whether it is my belief system, my conviction, my courage, right?
Right.
My values, right? Deep down values, right? My behaviors. Even in these days, it's very important what is expected of me,
Exactly.
and how do we need to behave.
Right.
So these fundamentals provides one core, and I think each one of us as professionals will have our own strengths, will have our own weaknesses, but our fundamental, the focus on having strong fundamentals, I think that should remain. That keeps us in good stead. The second, I think, very important piece which is now emerging is, and it is a debatable point, but I'm just sharing with you my conviction, which is domain expertise versus generalists,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My belief is that going forward in this world, some kind of a domain expertise is a must.
It's must. Okay.
The third thing I believe is extremely important, and going forward it's going to play a very important role in the lives of professionals, especially the generation which is now entering the workforce, right?
Correct.
And I think your question was more related to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there is no substitute to taking risks. This world is no more a world of a single truth,
Correct.
a uniform thing, a very stable thing. I think
Yeah.
that's thing of the past, right?
Correct.
The way things change, the kind of disruptions which are happening, and suddenly there are so many new things which are happening.
Exactly.
So many new opportunities have come. So go out, take your risks, be calculative, of course.
Right.
Do your calculations, but don't hesitate to take risk. No risk, no gain.
True.
Okay. And the other thing, the fourth thing I think which is becoming extremely important, which was not so prominent in the earlier days, is our ability to deal with ambiguity. I have a tagline which I have practiced throughout my life, and I think quite well. If you can't predict, at least prepare.
Right.
Right. So it's not always possible to predict, but it's
Right.
always possible to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And what would preparation mean? For me, preparation would mean staying employable,
Right.
staying competent. If this requirement of skills is undergoing a change, then I need to do upskill myself,
Right.
reskill myself, learn new skills, right? That's preparation. That's preparation for the future, and there's no substitute for that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful advice. I'm sure all the viewers who are watching this will really benefit this. So Rajeshwar, I think a lot of interesting points have come from this last question, and the debate continues between being a generalist and specialist. And one thing the COVID has taught us, that predictions don't come true. And so like you said, that you can't predict, but you can prepare. And you touched upon skills, and the core skills that you have, the behavioral, being lifelong learner. These are the meta skills, and today these skills have become very critical for you to shape your professional and personal journey. And also very rightly said that you should be allowed to make mistakes, and you learn from your mistakes. And as a leader, whether you're in HR pursuing to be a CEO or whatever, however, whichever ladder you need to climb, you have to learn to first fail and then grow. So we've had wonderful conversation. This is more of a business conversation, but as promised in the CHRO Club, we need to see you as a person away from your work. We need to see who Rajeshwar Tripathi is when he's not a CHRO, or the other side of Rajeshwar Tripathi. So watch out for episode 2. Thank you.